Hello peoples of the earth and welcome to QuickSave Daily number 5, which is a great number, and I always keep in my freaking memories how I was studying the multiplication table when I was in school in second grade, I think. And we had to study the multiplication table, you know, this 1 by 2, how much is that, like, and 2 by 2, and etc., and all the way up to 10, which was the easiest, by the way. 10 was the easiest. The 5 I just loved, right? How easy can it be? Like 5 multiplied by 525, like easy crap, you know. And now it's the daily number 5, and now it becomes easier and easier to count. Now you actually have to use your whole freaking hand in order to count the dailies, which we dedicated to Skyrim, which means we have at least 2 to go, depending on the feedback I received from you. About which I have to say that I've started a new survey, and as I hug my keyboard, let me go ahead and describe to you what the survey is about. The new survey is about the coverage of different contents, which you can check in the description. I'm gonna place the link for you to go ahead and go ahead and fill. If you have any time, please go ahead and fill this survey. Really important for me to know what you think about the content on QuicksaveTV. It asks about different content, what I covered already. I didn't make a whole lot of various coverage. I mean, I did. I kind of made up, I think, 8 games in total. But the thing is that I focus only on Skyrim so extensively, so there's not so much to choose from right now. I mean, there is one very solid video about that island, weapon system in detail, and the first part of that island multiplayer, which never seen, you know, the second part never seen the light of day, which is fine. I just stopped caring at some point. I just, you know, screw that. No one was interested anyway. People like the weapon systems in detail, which was a very great experience for me. But regardless, anyway, the point is that if you have time, please go ahead and fill out this survey and tell me what you think, what you've already watched on my channel, and leave your suggestions for the future content. On this note, I wanted to add that I will be covering Diablo 3 100%. I don't need any approval for that. I love the game and I will cover it. I hope you're gonna love the coverage of the game. I will go into detail in different various in-game mechanics. And the reason for that, I just feel it's a great RPG. I'm anticipating for it very much. I hope you do as well. It's just great freaking game, and how can you not make any coverage of this game? But I also would like to know, what do you, especially people who are subscribed to me for a while, I don't need to name the names. I know you by names. I mean, I recognize your names from a long while, you know. We started from the zero, and I remember your names, since some of you are subscribed like 6 months back and still are, you know, and it's great. It's great to have you on board, and I really want to know what's your opinion. I bought Mass Effect 3 finally, and it reached me from Amazon. Allow me to reach for it. It's right here. Ta-da! I installed it and tried to play it, but I found out that my goddamn freaking character was lost. Can you imagine? I was like, I will never lose this file. You know, I'm gonna keep it. I played it from Mass Effect 1, Mass Effect 2, and I just kept it. And now, Mass Effect 3 came. Do you want to import your character? I'm like, herp derp, of course I want to import my character. I keep it like 5 years back. How many years? I think 5 years. Yes, that's pretty accurate. And I'm like, yes, of course I want to import my character. My character is older than you are. And then I'm like, where is the file? Oh shit. Oh no, I think I deleted it. And then I feel like, wow, that's nice. That's a good note to start out on, you know, and yeah, it wasn't all that exciting. So I called my friend and asked him, do you have any save files? Because he's a huge Mass Effect nerd, and he played the second game over 10, 15 times. He did the game in all possible, you know, conditions, with different characters dying, different characters not dying. It's just crazy. I'm asking him, do you have a specific build I want? And he's like, what do you mean? It's so boring. You can get it on the internet. And I'm like, what do you mean boring? I enjoyed the game. It's my freaking character, you know. And so we assembled kind of the makeshift character, and yeah, and I played like half an hour. But I needed to make a daily, and I was like, oh yes. God damn it! Have no time, have to make the daily. So I'm making a daily right here. But, you know, regardless, needless to say, I would like to hear your opinion. If you would like to see any of Mass Effect 3 coverage, maybe some of you would like to see me trying to cover StarCraft 2, which I'm horrible at, and it will be probably very funny, especially if I try to play multiplayer and commentate on it. I'll be like, oh, Mike, getting supplied blocked. Yes, now, anyway, the topic of today's discussion will be, I think I covered everything. I did. The topics of today's discussion will be how to fight giants in Skyrim. Now, in order to make it most organized and very, very tidy, we will we will go ahead and divide the topic on 3 parts, specifically warrior, mage, and an archer, in order to understand it better. So I'm going to give you a rundown on how do you actually fight giants from every character's perspective. What is it? It doesn't seem to be an English word, so perspective would rather be better, better word I should have used. Yes, I need to brush up on my English skills and just get better at it. Regardless, we'll start by the hardest. Oh, we'll actually start on I should actually refer to my keynotes because they're very, very nice and organized, unlike myself. So, what are the giants? Giants are the creatures common to Skyrim. Essentially they are from Skyrim. They are like native creatures of here. And what they do most of the times, they use mammoths for cheese, and possibly, but not really confident of that, for meat as well. But the thing is that we can see easily that I should look at you. They use mammoth's milk to make cheese, and they eat this cheese, which we can see in the way they operate their places where they stay, their camps, the so-called giant camps. Now, which means that they're pretty much tied to them, and they're these traveling tribes which they get mammoths out. Mammoths eat grass, presumably, and they get the milk. The giants use this milk, make cheese, and just make it, eat it. And we see them eating different animals such as horses and cows, which are much smaller than mammoths, obviously. But that's overall what we're working with. Usually mammoths can be found in their camps, most of the times. Camps are quite sizable. Sometimes they live in caves, in very, very, special conditions, especially when the cave is freaking gigantic. But they often hoard their stuff into caves, but not always. Usually when you attack the camp of giants, it's not so many enemies that you encounter, but it's rather the difficulty of encountering the giants. But the rewards are well worth your while. Now, good. Okay, their behavior. Okay, so I think I explained it pretty much in detail. Now let's go ahead into the perspective of the warrior. What is a warrior, right? How will warrior fight giants? Because you'll be like, you have to be freaking crazy to attack the giants as a warrior, which, it actually is in a way crazy. But provided that you follow some simple tips and tricks, and you make sure that your armor and weapons is in tip-top condition, you will be able not only to survive, but effectively hunt giants. And it's not very difficult. Provided that you get proper gear and equipment, and you spec your character properly. So, as a warrior, it's very hard to fight giants, especially in the beginning of the game, which becomes much easier in mid to late game as you get better and better equipment, weaponry, and armor. Especially important as a warrior if you decide to fight giants on the fair basis, you should make sure that you have a very strong blocking skill. The best idea would be to have a shield. If you don't, you still have to have a fairly high blocking skill, because giants have this nasty habit on the master's difficulty to kill you in one bloody shot. So you have to be sure that you can survive these attacks of the giants in order to, to fight back against them. Because as a warrior, if you have heavy armor and you're not really mobile, you won't be able to get on time away from the giants, and you will probably die, which is a goddamn shame. So you should be sure that you can block the damage and outlive it. A nice combination would be to use restoration with it as well, because restoration will allow you to restore both your stamina and health, allowing you to sprint a little bit longer, to run away from the giants, and etc. Now, you also should have nice reflexes, or good and solid understanding of the battlefield where you fight. So tactical understanding is very important as well. What do we understand by tactical view on the battlefield? What is it? Essentially, it is that you should not fight giants out in the open. For instance, it's really unwise to fight a giant in a freaking field. Why? Because giants are very good at accelerating, and they will easily catch up with you and punch you on the freaking face, and you won't be able to run away effectively enough, because of the way the field is constructed, there's no obstacles for giants' movement. He will not get obscured. Is that how you call it? I think obscured by any objects on the battlefield, and he will reach you really quickly and kill you, which is again a damn shame. So you should make sure that there are stones or pillars or walls or maybe mountains on the battlefield which you can use to retreat from the giant. Okay, so that's the first and foremost. Now, make sure you know what, okay. So, make sure you know what you're doing. You know, should keep them shorter actually, so I don't spend time reading now. Make sure you know what you're doing. Your weapon and your armor should be in tip-top condition, as I said before. But what do I understand under that? If you watched my video some time ago in which I attack a giant, and essentially I just gonna turn off my Skype in case. I'm so random today. I have a great mood, but I'm really random. I'm always random, even when I don't have a great mood, which is quite a pain to see. Now, if you, when you attack the enemy with your weapon, you don't just scratch the giant, but you actually deal nice damage, and you can see the health points of the giant shrinking, then you're doing a good job. If you don't, then you're kind of wasting your time. Excuse me, because not only it represents the overall weakness of your character, but also it will take so much freaking time for you to finish with the giant that you will probably get pissed off and throw the mouse/controller onto the wall, breaking it and resulting in additional needless expenses to your household, which is probably not the best thing to do. Good thing I have keyboard and it's not wireless. Because it's wired, cheapest keyboard I could find, my little keyboard, I cannot throw it anywhere, and I don't punch on it, so it serves me well for over 2 years now. Don't throw your keyboards, and don't buy wireless stuff, because it's so easy, much easier to throw it. Don't break your stuff, value your stuff, and get used to it. You know, you usually don't have anything to blame but yourself when you make these mistakes. Sometimes the giants are being gigantic asses, and they just use this AoE attack, which essentially one-shot kills you 100% of the time, even when you're kind of 2 meters away from a giant, which doesn't really matter for the game, and you get really pissed, which I understand you completely. But don't throw your controllers around. It's expensive, and it's, you know, they just look nice. Why would you want to break them? I mean, I like PS3 controllers. I have to be fair. Although the Sony's product was not so successful generally this year, and in general, Sony doesn't have the best time on competing on the console market. I have to say I love their controllers. They look very nice. They are kind of weird when I hold them. Not that I had PlayStation ever, but we used to play with a friend on PlayStation 2. We used to play this weird game in which knife would one-shot kill you and it would have auto freaking aim, which was ridiculous. And grenades were also having auto aim. If you know what the game, leave in comment. I would like to know what it is. It was kind of like tactical game, but regardless, the controller looked very good until I actually took it in my bloody hands, because my hands are like mud crab claws. And I cannot properly hold anything. And so I'm like, you know, like a troll with this controller, like, oh, this game sucks. I cannot do anything with this bloody thing. And, you know, but it looks very beautiful, I have to say. So don't break your controllers. Now that we done with this flood about controllers, essentially, you need to have very good equipment to fight giants effectively, and so that it doesn't get on your nerves. Because if you don't, it will take a lot of time, and you will not do it quickly enough before you actually sleep, and your adrenaline will take the best of you, and you will just lose the battle. For instance, as I was recording the video for the fighting the giant, oftentimes I would just get the giant down to the 50% hit points, and even below that, but then I would make just one stupid mistake, right, and I would have to start all over, right? And it was so frustrating, okay? The video itself was compressed to 6 minutes, if I'm not mistaken, from 10 minutes to 6 minutes. But the point is that in order to record this actual footage, I was playing the game, retrying the same moment again and again for over 4 hours. You see, so it's not so freaking easy as it might look. I mean, I make it look easy after so many times. I memorized the bloody moves of the giants. They have about 10 movements, which easy to remember, and most of them are harmless except for one, except for 2 of them actually. One is when a giant raises his leg, I think left leg or right leg, I don't remember, one of his legs, and stomps on the ground, resulting in a very powerful AoE attack, which even if you're not directly under the leg, even if you're close, you still die in one shot. So you have to make sure that you block these attacks or avoid them altogether. It's very nice to bash the giant before you open up with your combos, because this way you retain much more control on the battlefield. Also, another very annoying attack of the giant, when you're being overly aggressive, he does this, he pushes you back with his shoulder, and because this attack is very quick and very powerful, you just die again in one shot, so you have to be really careful with that. Okay, another suggestion for you dear warriors out there, take some potions with you. Not necessarily healing potions, but having some stamina potions would be really nice, because they give you this additional edge if you get in troubles if you get in trouble when fighting a giant, you can easily take this stamina potion, drink it up, and just sprint the hell away from the giant. Because as you generally bash with the shield and attack, you will run out of stamina, and you have to be really careful with that. So it's not cowardly or anything, it's tactical to retreat from the enemy. It's not cowardice when you run away from an enemy that is 300 times bigger than you are. That's not cowardice, it's tactical thinking. You know, don't let your, you're gonna be like, playing with your friends, and I'll be like, oh, you're a bloody coward, and you'll be like, yeah, you know, that's what she said. I mean, if you retreat from the enemies, you're not being an idiot. You don't have to die there, because the giant obviously has an upper hand in a combat with you. So you have to push him to fight in your conditions, in your tactical conditions you force upon him, you know. So it's just generally very, very wise. Another thing I would like to suggest, but it's not just for warrior, it's for any kind of class. I shouldn't get away from the microphone because the voice can get screwed up. It's very wise to pull giants from the flock. What words? Look at the wording. You pull the giant from the flock, but only one at a time. Don't get like 3 giants at the same time aggroed at you. Try to get near one of them, piss him off enough to follow you and attack you outright, and deal with them. Once you deal with one of them, get back for more of them. Take them one at a time. Don't take so many of them that you cannot handle. It's like when you go to the gym at the first time, and what you're trying to do. Like, there is your gymnastics trainer, which is like pumped up guy, and he's like, I am, the giant. And you're like, what do you want to do? You're like, oh, I don't know, I would like to start with some weights. And he's like, okay, how much do you want? 120, 150? And you're like, oh, I can do 180. Not a problem. What am I, and you try to do that, and you break down, and tomorrow you wake up, and you suddenly realize that you wish you was dead. You wish you were dead. Because your body hurts so freaking much. Not only you cannot go to the gym, but you also cannot stand up. So, the gym is one of your least worries. So when you attack the giants, it's the best to pace your strength, and don't take on all of them at the same time. It's better to attack them one at a time and get dealt with them this way. Okay, now let's go to the mage. Now that with warrior we discussed it with most detail, because it's the hardest. Now we're gonna talk with many detail, but much quicker. A mage. So, mage fighting the giant is much easier than the warrior. Because of the character of the fighting, you don't have to be straight up close to the enemy. You can use variety of ranged spells. You can again use the channeled kind of spells, the ones you get in the beginning of the game, which are like that, right? They work very nice and very good. But it's best to keep your distance. And it's always very nice to have very good amount of stamina reserve, so that if something goes wrong, so that you can retreat from the enemy, and so that nothing bad will happen with you. Because if you don't, suddenly you're tied in this combat, and if you die, if you're about to die or you're in trouble, there's nothing you can do. You have to be careful with that. Another thing, what makes it much more easier when you're fighting as a mage, you can take summons with you. Again, this is consideration that you don't use companions, but it's not that companions fight very well against giants. They actually get incapacitated very quickly, and it's not so useful. But, conjured Atronachs and other familiars, they not only are really easy to resummon once again, they also soak a lot of damage while you attack the enemy. And they give you this tactical edge to retreat or move to a different position on the battlefield, which is really important. Okay, so don't go for heavy garments, because although they kind of protect you better, this is not the case when fighting a giant. It's not the smartest thing to do. It's much better to use a robe as a mage at this particular combat situation, or a light armor at least, because heavy armor not only makes you so freaking slow, it doesn't defend you from the blows of the giant. As a warrior, you would kind of rationalize it by saying, oh, you know what, I'm trying to level up heavy armor, so why should I go around with my underwear when fighting a giant? It's logical, but with a mage, not really. The cup of strength, the cup of coffee. Now, essentially, it's very nice to have something light when you're fighting giant, because this way you're not only not getting slowed down in combat, you also spend less stamina while sprinting, which is really important again. Because majority of your stamina as an archer and a mage, you will spend running away from the giant, not not actually shorten the distance. That is, if you're not suicidal maniac and you plan to live alive and not in pieces. Now, okay, try to pace your damage on the giant so that you don't run out of magicka really quickly. So in what way? Don't burst all your magicka at the enemy if you have no means to recover the magicka. Try to pace it and always like get your magicka from 100% to 30% and stop, make a pause and let it recover. But never let it to stay at 100%. Just use it up for something, because you're not benefited for having magicka 100% at 100% because it stops regenerating. And what you want to have at all times, just like in a strategy game, as you get more and more resources, you have to spend them all the time, because there's no interest rate in the game which would allow you to benefit from having a lot of it. So I cannot stress it enough. You have to spend magicka, but not in a manner where you would, throw a small spell and calm down. Like, spend 10% and recover. Not like that. Because this way, you spend more time spending it, and you get diminishing returns. Essentially, if you don't spend a sufficient amount of magicka, you just waste your time, and you again cut regeneration for no reason. Because while you use the magicka, you have no regeneration. So you have to burst to a certain amount, let's say 30%, I recommend 30%. Or the minimal amount which you need to summon a new creature, a conjured familiar, and then just go ahead and let it restore. Because that's how it seems wiser, and that's how it seems more rational for you to do. Then, don't forget to have increased magic regeneration, and perhaps have classical magical potions. Potions of magicka, because this way you will be able to restore your magicka and get more damage like right away. Because other way you will have to wait for a lot of time, and it's not always a possibility. Again, if you're on the mountain and you throw the spells at the enemy, at the giant in this case, this is not particularly important issue. But if you're in freaking close combat and you maneuver all the time on the battlefield, that's very important that you manage your magicka properly, or else you're just gonna die there. Which is quite sad. I don't want you to die, because I like you. So let's go ahead next to the spells. What about spells? Okay. I pretty much said about everything except for shouts. If you want to include shouts as a complementary ability to your playstyle as a mage when you fight a giant, you have to make sure that the shout you use is not damage dealing shout, but the shout that gives you tactical edge. For instance, you could use freezing shout in order to immobilize the giant, or you could use the Fusroda shout in order to try to get the small, to get giant confused in order to get in a better position. Again, the lower cooldown the better, but the effect should also be taken into consideration. I don't suggest you to use pure damage on shouts, because it just doesn't seem so nice. You already have very good damage. You should use something to control the enemy. It's like when you play World of Warcraft, you don't, as in PvP, in general, in every game, in an RPG arena, you want to have stuns. You want to have controlling abilities against your enemies. Because if you do, it's you have a tactical edge over your enemies. For instance, when you have a stun ability, what do? You punch the guy in the face and, well, he's like, incapacitated. You get some medicine on yourself, you get some healing, you restore some cooldowns, you attack again, you get the edge. That's what you want to do with the mage. Okay, that's about mage. Let's go to the archer now. Archer, how we like to call them, right? Right, you know what I'm saying? Forget it. Archer, that's the easiest probably type of fighting, but again, if you exploit. But it's easiest regardless, because of the way Archer operates. Although some might argue, Archer is an immobile class. Yes, you are correct, Archer is an immobile class, in the beginning of the game at least. And then Archer takes some time to get his weapon ready. Yes, you are correct. Yes, he does. But, unlike the mage, which can burst out the damage, Archer doesn't need to restore any of his resources. Because in Skyrim, just like it was in Oblivion, firing arrows at the enemy does not take out any of your resources. It doesn't take your stamina, doesn't take your magicka, doesn't take your health, so you're fine. You can constantly fire as long as you have ammunition. Okay, so make sure you have enough arrows. That's the only thing I can suggest to you when you're playing as the, archer. Very important to have enough arrows. If you play on Master's difficulty, and you go in the first in your early earliest teen, against a giant, you can easily blow up over 200 arrows, over 200 iron arrows on the giant, sometimes even without killing it. So you have to make sure that you have enough arrows. You don't necessarily have to waste all of them, but it's very good to have more arrows. Like, aim for 500. It's always nice to have over 500 or over arrows. It's always enough for any situation. Fighting a dragon, fine, you're good. Fighting a giant, fine, you're good. And you're not going to get dependent on anything. And because of the way mechanics for ammunition operates in Skyrim, just like it was operating in, if I'm not mistaken, just forgive me really if I'm mistaken, I think it was the same in Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 3. Fallout 3, I'm almost sure it was like this. The ammunition doesn't weigh anything. And because of I think it doesn't weigh anything. Or it's so light that it doesn't even matter. And because of that, you can accumulate ridiculous amount of ammunition, in this case arrows, and just use them in any combat situation. It also makes it much easier for you to level up. Sorry, it was a car. Much more easier to level up your marksmanship skill, your archery, marksmanship. I'm going for all the Oblivion terms. I played so much Oblivion. I don't know if you guys did. I mean, for me, the experience with the Elder Scrolls series started with Oblivion. It just was such an instrumental game for me in my childhood. It's great. It was an unbelievably good game, and I loved it. I loved the game. I still love it. And so many hours. I was skipping school for this game. You know, it was just such a great experience. Yeah. So marksmanship is how archery was called in Oblivion. So now anyway, marksmanship, my dear marksmen. You would want to have a lot of arrows, so that you don't get into a situation in combat where you don't have enough arrows. Very simple, you know. Okay, let's continue. Okay. And again, the same that comes, that I said to the warrior, which actually applies to all the classes, to the archer also. You should know the battlefield on which you're fighting. Make sure you study it before you get into combat. So, you know, as you approach the giants, make sure you pay attention for all these interesting locations. Aha, there's a pillar over there. Aha. Bunch of rocks over here, I can use them as cover. Some stuff here, I can use it as cover. And use this cover to play hide and seek with giants, to circle around these things, to make them hunt for you in worst possible conditions for them. Don't fight them on the open field. Because if you fight giants in the open field, generally you have nowhere to hide, and giant will always win in a fair combat, provided your damage is not high enough. And this is not guide, you know, oh guys, you know how you kill giants? Get to 81st level and then you're gonna pretty much screw everything. So, you know, 81st level is the answer. No, you cannot fight giants from the first level. I proved that. You can do the same. If you're stubborn enough, you can do that. I'm giving you the tactical edge for which you don't need to have 81st level. That's not a necessity. But you have to understand where you fight. It's not like you come in and you kill, like one shot kill him. You can do that if you exploit the game, but you don't have to. You can still enjoy the game and get it done just as well. Okay, great. So cool. Obstacles. Pay attention to the battlefield and just study it a little bit. Just briefly study the positions which you can use as cover and make them your covers. You know, like makeshift positions for you to retreat to when the things get stinky, you know, with the giant. So you can retreat to them and it will be no problem for you. Okay, go. In conclusion, what's the conclusion? Conclusion is, if you're asking me, can I defeat a giant on the first level and onwards, before reaching 81st, or 60s, or 50s even, yes you can. You can. I hope I'm not getting sued by you know whom for it. Regardless, I wish you good luck in your travels and fighting the giant. In the conclusion, just, you know, pay attention to the battlefield, make sure your gear is fine, and you'll be alright. I gave you the breakdown. I gave you a breakdown on all the classes. It should help you. I think it was quite extensive, and there is nothing else you really need to know. You always can get deeper in that and can get better in this, but you don't need to, you know. You can start and try practicing yourself, and you will get soon very, very well giant hunter, and you can start making the stupid work for Jarl of Windhelm, Whiterun, excuse me, and get to killing giants, which is very fun. Okay, so please make sure to subscribe to my channel if you would like to support my work and get notified when new content becomes available. And tell your friends about me. And come back for more content. And let's end up on something interesting, something I found interesting. Did you know that Mario, first game about Mario, in 81st My yes, 81st arcade game about Mario. It was in Donkey Kong, and Mario was essentially at first called Jumpman. Now imagine Jumpman being a multi-millionaire symbol. Just think of it. It would be very fun. So now Jumpman was renamed to Mario in the name of the way it says here, in honor of the Nintendo to the America's landlord, Mario Segali. So yeah, here you go. So if you're a landlord, you can become the new Mario. I wish I would be a Russian plumber. Mike, the Russian plumber. That would be fun. Regardless, come back for more and I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to tell your friends about me and stay tuned for more content. It was great having you here. Have a great day and bye bye.